Hey everyone, Bruce Eckfeldt here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Make sure that you subscribe and turn on notifications so we can let you know when the next video is posted. You can also check us out at eckfeldt.com for more great content. With that, let's go check out the video.
You're listening to Scaling Up Services, where we speak with entrepreneurs, authors, business experts, and thought leaders to give you the knowledge and insights you need to scale your service-based business faster and easier. And now, here is your host, business coach Bruce Eckfeldt.
Welcome everyone, this is Scaling Up Services. I'm Bruce Eckfeldt, I'm your host. And our guest today is William Lieberman, who is founder and CEO of the CEO's right hand and all-around financial genius. So William and I have known each other for a while through the Entrepreneurs Organization and various kind of groups. And I'm really fascinated to talk to him today about his entrepreneurial background and the company he's working on now, which is very service-based. William, thank you for being on the program.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here and looking forward to it.
Great. So why don't we start? I always like to kind of have people just give a little bit about their background. So what was your background? How did you get into services? How did you start this particular company? And then we can talk a little bit about what you're doing with the CEO's right hand.
Sure. My background has been business and finance, both a mix all my life. So I built a couple different companies, the main one being a fintech business that started in San Francisco, and then I moved it out to New York and built and ran that as CEO and chairman as well as CFO for many years. And then I left that in 2014 and went to a startup. I was president and CFO of that business, a startup that didn't start for a variety of reasons, as many people have experienced. And then from there, I started my current business, the CEO's right hand, as a boutique financial consulting firm.
Awesome. Yeah, I think there's a whole nother podcast on startups that didn't quite start.
Yes, exactly.
I think everyone's got a story of those. So, and this is great because I think a lot of what I love to talk about is a little bit of the contrast or the differences in service-based businesses than other types, product-based business, manufacturing-based businesses. So tell me a little bit about when you started the CEO's right hand. What services were you focusing on? What problems were you trying to solve for folks? And then we can talk a little bit about the evolution of that over time.
Right. So I think it's important to understand some of the reasons I started the business, right? So I started the business so that I can have flexibility in my life. And so that I can have a really bit of risk diversification. So in my mind, if I have 10, 15, 20 clients and I lose one or two, it doesn't matter. But if I go work for somebody full time, that could be perceived as even riskier. Lots of people don't realize that. They say, I could go get a job. It's safe. But there's a lot of ways that it isn't. So just want to put that out there. So I started this business looking to be the outsourced CFO for early stage growth companies, where I provide strategic advice based in finance that can help people go from point A to point B to point A. How are you going to get there? And let me figure out with you as a partner, what we can do from a financial perspective to help you. So that was the genesis. I had spent many years in EO and Entrepreneurs Organization and the Accelerators program. I spent many years as a mentor to very early stage companies. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed being able to help them. And so now this gives me a vehicle to do so.
So you mentioned sort of strategic problems. What were there typical things that you tended to focus on, or problems that you ran into with these early stage folks? So what kind of problems did you generally focus on with these early stage companies? Like what were you running into? Any common challenges that you'd find that they have?
Sure. In the beginning, lots of companies, especially as they're growing, struggle with cash flow. And how much cash do they have? How much do they need? How are we going to get it? How are we going to generate it? What's the best way to generate cash, be it internally, or do we need to go and raise capital? And if we need to raise capital, how do we do it? How much do we need? Who do we approach? So we spend a lot of time on making sure the company doesn't run out of cash as they're growing. And that's a real core area of focus for us even today. Beyond that, we got into and get into very strategic issues with what products or services should we be selling? How should we be selling? Who should we be selling to? You think through all the different types of aspects of a business when the company is young and you are actually a trusted advisor, a consigliere, if you will,
Yeah.
for the CEO founder. And because I've been in their shoes and have been there, done that, it brings a lot of experience to the table that helps them avoid the landmines.
Yeah. And I think that's, that advisory role can be really kind of important for early stage companies, because oftentimes either they haven't been through it before, or they've been through it in one particular way and they haven't been through it the way they're in it now.
Right.
So helping them navigate that stuff. I also think that, from a finance point of view, it's fascinating because it's, we always say, I'll show me your bank account or your credit card statement, and I'll show you what your priorities are.
Right.
They will spend money
Right.
based on what they really want to do and what they really think is important. So it's I think it's a fascinating way of kind of looking or advising a business. So it sounds like in the beginning it was kind of this finance, and then it would kind of filter out or kind of spread out to lots of different aspects of the business. As you started to grow, what did you notice about some of the challenges of picking clients, picking services? What was that process like for you as you grew the company?
Yeah. So in terms of looking at clients and qualifying clients, I think that was a big challenge for me is how to qualify clients, especially in the beginning. I was taking everything in, right? I was being very opportunistic and not strategic in terms of my ability to look at a client, what are their needs, and what are my abilities or my team's abilities to service those needs. So now I boiled it down to, a pretty simple list. One, are you passionate about growing your business, right? There's lots of companies that are lifestyle companies that are just kind of, going along, and they're happy to do that and not really interested in growing or changing or mixing things up, and so that they can really increase the bottom line. Two, are you willing to listen, right? There's lots of people, you go
Yeah.
in and they have their own ideas and they're just going to do what they're going to do. So I'm not quite sure why I'm even there. And three, I have to like you, right?
Yeah.
So, life's too short. So if you really are not a person I would like to have a beer with, I'm probably not going to want to do business with you and talk to you on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Other than that, we're pretty open to, and I guess can you pay my bill, right? So, other than that, we're open to any industry, any geography, and we're really looking to grow the business significantly, and we have so far.
Yeah. So tell me about the growth. So where have you seen traction in terms of being able to grow and scale these services from a sort of value or from a offering point of view? Like what do you go out with at this point in terms of services?
I think one of the things that I learned is there are, on the food chain of finance, there are, the bottom is sort of bookkeeping, and then the top is strategic advisory, and there's everything in between: accounting, controller, financial planning, VP of finance, a CFO, and then strategic advisor. That's the spectrum, and that's the spectrum of services that we offer. And what I found is that the higher up the chain, that obviously the more you can charge. But those are the people that are in demand because there's fewer and far between. Right. So finding a really good business analyst who can do financial planning in Excel is very difficult. And so what we do is we found some people that we know that work great, that are client facing. Same on the CFO side, strategic CFOs. There's tons of bookkeepers, tons of people at the bottom of the food chain. And so I stay away from that work and focus in on the high value add, where I know that we can bring a lot to the table and that I can subsequently charge a lot more than, again, the sort of commoditized service within the financial realm.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like really kind of figuring out where do you have the most impact from a client point of view, and where do they have the hardest time finding, basically finding those services.
And there are lots of companies that provide outsourced bookkeeping, and they do it in mass, right? And, some of them are pretty good. But that's just not the space that we play in.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And certainly figuring out the niche and the focus. Anything you've seen in terms of the customer side, in terms of types of customers, either demographic or psychographic or situational, that you end up finding a lot or doing well with or selling easily to?
Definitely. I think, again, the ones that are passionate about growing, and those tend to be, and it happens to be, the people that I get referred into either from Gazelles, the Gazelles coaches, the Entrepreneurs Organization EO folks, Vistage, and to a less extent YPO, but the people that are in organizations like that are really interested in learning more and growing their business and listening to other people from a, sort of EQ, IQ quotient kind of thing. They're ready.
Yeah.
They're ready to dig in and improve their game. So that's the best. And then from there, I've been working my network and finding people that are in a state of change, some flux, something's happened in their business that gives them a pain point. And once they hit that pain point, then they say, hey, yeah, I really need your help here.
Good. So I'm sure a lot of people listening are kind of in this professional services world of various kind of flavors. What would you say have been some of the bigger challenges for you as you kind of look to grow the professional services organizations? Where have you hit challenges, roadblocks, obstacles, and what are some of the things that you've done to overcome those?
Right. I think that, some of the biggest challenges, especially in the services organization, it comes down to people, right? So finding the right people that can deliver and understand the consultative approach to a service-based business, right? So you could find lots of people that are really good, say, in a specific domain, like spreadsheet work or financial analysis, whatever it might be. But to find people that are good at that and are really good communicators that can go and be client-facing and listen and ask the right questions, take it back, digest it, and package it up together in a solution using the various constituents and resources that they have at their disposal. Mm-hmm. That's critical, right? Finding those people is what I spend a lot of time on. And, I've been able to do that so far. Some people haven't worked out in the past, but my current team's great. And I'm continually looking. So I'm always interviewing, always talking to people, always meeting people. Even if I don't have an immediate need, I'm always building a bench. And that I found is very critical across the whole spectrum. So from bookkeepers all the way up to CFOs, I'm constantly building a bench.
Yeah, I would say probably, if I were to create a list of like the top 3 things for a CEO of a service-based company, but talent is probably number 1 or number 2. I would have to debate it a little bit, but 1 and 2, because I think you're right, and I like that kind of the maybe the mental shift of it's not that you're always developing talent, you're always looking for talent, and I often find that in fact companies run into a problem is if they start to look for talent when they need the talent, it's far too late. Like you really need to have that pipeline, that bench, that talent flow coming in so that when you do need it, you can kind of pull from the pool that you have rather than trying to create it, because it can take months and it comes and goes and fits and starts based on what's going on in the market and the economy.
I use an accordion model, right? So I use 1099 contractors so that I can scale up and scale down depending upon the volume of business coming in. And so that creates its own challenges, by the way. So there's some great things about it, but some issues that come up with some of these people have their own clients or their own businesses, et cetera. And so they might not always be available. So that's where I have to build that bench out. So I always have enough capacity of people sitting on the bench so that if something comes in and closes, then I know. And then I'm always forecasting out my pipeline and I'm talking to people, say, hey, this could close in the next 30 days. Are you going to be available, et cetera, et cetera.
So, and I'm, as a financial person, I'm sure you're a lot of experience doing forecasts and stuff, but I actually think that's one of the big challenges for a lot of professional services firms is they think that, okay, well, I'm going to do my forecast in January 1st, for the year, and then I'm going to look at it again next January. In fact, it's an ongoing process. It's every week, every other week, once a month, sit down and doing that forecast and reforecasting and adjusting based on the new information we have. How does that change our outlook, and developing that sort of that bench and keeping that bench kind of warm based on what might be coming down the pike is
absolutely
is key.
And whatever forecast you come up with is going to be wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's forecast. It's forecasting, not the forecast. That's important.
Exactly.
So, and I think that 1099, the whole the accordion contractor model. Do you have a sense of the ratio, like what bench on the 1099 or what capacity of 1099 do you typically kind of need or do you target relative to the work that you think you're going to get? Because you're right, that you don't know, you could go to any one of those people for a given week and they could say, well, look, I've got another gig. I'm not available that week. What is that multiple for you? Do you have a sense?
So, I always like to have probably about 2 or 3 people that I know, I trust, that I have vetted, that have some capacity. So let's say 25 to 50% capacity at any given time. So I kind of, because even within that, they'll ebb and flow. But if I have sort of 3 people within a function that are, relatively available, that's a good number for me, given the volume of inbound leads or lead gen that I'm doing.
Yeah, because there's always a cost, right? It takes you time and money and energy to develop that pipeline. You don't want to. If I develop it 10 deep, I'm probably over invested in that. Whereas if I only have one, I'm probably too risk. So
exactly,
understanding how that balances every time. And I think that's a key one for services companies, just looking at resources. Honestly, the same kind of idea and model can be applied to full-time hires as well.
Right.
Just unfortunately, we got rid of indentured servitude, a couple of centuries ago. So, we can't guarantee that everyone's going to be around. You never know when you're going to get a notice. So having that bench on that side too is always, it's a key idea, particularly if you're growing. Right. If you know that you're going to be scaling up over the next, the coming quarters, coming years. Talk to me a little bit about this idea of like this Venn diagram. We had, people that are highly skilled, and we have people who are great at client services, and then we've got this little football-shaped sliver in the center. What have you found in terms of how you find these people? Any approaches, techniques, either in terms of sourcing or in terms of filtering through folks, in terms of finding that the football folks?
Right. So sourcing, I use my networks, right? So I use, my existing personal network. I use my business school alumni network. I'm constantly reaching out, and then I'm also talking to competitors. So I always say, hey, what are you doing, Bob? How's this working? And I get some G2 on, what they're doing. And sometimes they'll say, hey, look, we don't have a need for this type of thing, or it's just they're not a direct competitor, so we even share resources. So there's all sorts of opportunities. And by circulating and telling people what I'm doing, what I'm looking for, I just get people giving me leads on resources. In terms of vetting them, I always look at technical skills as well as, consultative skills. So there's the soft skills, and I meet with them, sit down with them, understand how they communicate. I always get samples of their writing. So yes, we do finance and number stuff, but I always get writing samples because I want to see how well they communicate. And then what I do is I have them start with a small project, and I sit with them on that as sort of like a test project, if you will. And I sit with them when they're going to a client or on the phone with a client. And so I get to hear, are they asking the right questions, et cetera. So it's a multi-step process. And then from there, I can sort of start giving them more and more work.
Mm-hmm. What level of confidence would you say you get to before, when you pull the trigger on a hire versus, you're still kind of evaluating over a period of time? Do you have a sense of what that is? Do you get to 100% certainty or, very, very high level of certainty before you kind of bring someone on and have them start working with clients? Or do you have some kind of, we formally have like a 3-month probation period or some kind of trial period, and you see how it goes, and only a certain percentage actually make it past that?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Probably closer to the latter than the former. So it is hey, let's try each other out, right? Because it's also, hey, can we work together well? And I want to make sure there's a chemistry between myself and the CFO consultants, so that they feel comfortable working with me, just as I feel comfortable working with them, and obviously the client feels comfortable. And I tell the clients, hey, look, here's a person that I think is the right fit for you. If you don't feel that's there, I have 2 or 3 others that I could place as well. So in many respects, I'm a staffing business in many respects, right? Yeah. But I do spend time with them, and I like to sort of understand what their concerns are, frustrations are, et cetera, when they're digging into engagement, so they don't get stuck. I got to help them get unstuck as quickly as possible.
It's an interesting kind of way of positioning, is that you're putting them on the client. They're kind of in charge and responsible for the client. You're there as, kind of the SWAT team. If something goes wrong, or if you need help, or if something is unclear, call me, and then you can kind of come in and help you with that particular situation.
Exactly what I do.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how you're kind of, I used to call it playing chess in the consulting game. It's like figuring out how to deploy your various people on various clients. Are there techniques, questions, strategies that you use to kind of figure out who should be working with who, for how long, for what project? Is there a rhyme or reason to?
It's not as disciplined as I would like. What you just said is a good idea. A little matrix, so I can actually kind of envision that. But it's a kind of a Venn diagram, like you said. So it's a looking at the personality of the client versus the consultant, looking at the consultant's background in terms of domain expertise. Do they know manufacturing versus professional services versus e-commerce, right? So depending upon what the engagement is and what their background is. So as an example, if somebody happens to have worked in Japan and I happen to have a client in Japan and they need help, well, there's maybe a good fit. So the domain expertise, the personality, and obviously capacity and their ability, and sometimes geography, right? So I'll have a client in middle of New Jersey. I'm not going to place somebody from Long Island on that account. So that happens. So it's kind of a combination of those 4 items.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's one of the big challenges of service-based business is you're dealing with people, and people are a little complicated. They live places, they have personalities, they have different skills. So figuring out kind of the matrix of how you map them together is tough.
Now, in today's world, we do a lot, even in the tri-state area, we do a lot virtually, right? So there's a lot of clients that maybe we'll go once or twice in the beginning, but ongoing, we just do Skype or on the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. That's certainly changing a lot of industries. And I think it's an interesting example here where it's not I've got someone in, South America or in Eastern Europe. Like I'm bridging these huge geographies. You're actually bridging 20 miles.
Right.
And it's just, you're actually taking a local market and just making it that much more efficient in terms of being able to bring resources together, that otherwise, might be commuting for an hour twice a day if they really had to get them
exactly. So I can increase my billable hours by 25% just by doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's huge.
Well, that's all bottom line. Yeah. If you look at the finances of it, that's dropping to your bottom line. You're still paying people. So tell me a little, as you think about kind of growing and scaling the business as CEO, what are the things that you kind of think about, focus on in terms of the strategic side of the business? Where do you spend your time, and what do you do at that time in terms of thinking through your business and how you grow it?
So currently, I'm spending a lot of time on sales and marketing. So, and they're 2 very different things, as I've learned. So what I need to do is do a better job of not only just filling the funnel, which we're doing a pretty good job of filling the funnel, but making sure everything's dropping through the bottom. And so I'm actually looking to bring on a consultant to help me do that, right? So, hey, I know you are a guru in sales and walking people through that funnel. And so helping me and my biz dev team work through that, I think is going to be very valuable, so we can increase our close rates and decrease our sales cycle time. That's one thing that I'm working on. 2 is marketing with a message that's clear and defined and really make sure that resonates with my target market. So, I spend a lot of time on that as opposed to throwing spaghetti on the wall, because, I could do webinars, I could do ebooks, I could do all sorts of things, but let's do things that really drive people to making a decision about hiring us. And so I'm trying to focus in on that as opposed to now, in the past, I was trying a bunch of different things.
Yeah, it's always a balance of the kind of that experimenting for new ideas, but then taking the ones that get traction and actually honing them and optimizing them. And any piece of advice? So like I said, there's probably quite a few people that are in leadership positions and service-based companies that are looking to grow. Any piece of advice or thoughts that you would give them in terms of areas of focus, things to think about, maybe things they're not thinking about, they should start thinking about?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that is important is having a playbook in place. So you follow a process. So be it looking for talent. How do we do that? How do we go about that? What are the right types of people that will fit? So coming up with a playbook on finding talent and ensuring the quality of the service that you're providing with that talent will help you scale, because by putting in a process in place, you then can enable people that work with you and work for you to start putting that into motion, meaning I could now say, hey, here's the playbook of how we go out and find somebody, and now I can delegate pieces of that to somebody else and start inculcating that with them. So now I can take a step up and can grow my organization because other people doing pieces of it for me. So by putting processes in place, I can delegate out more and more.
Yeah, and I think it's a big sort of mental shift that a lot of founders, CEOs go through. Process structure will set you free. It's just a matter of kind of embracing it and figuring out how to do it in a way that works for you. Yeah, but I think those are great points. We're going to hit time here in a second. So why don't I'll give you a chance. If people want to find out more information about you, about your company, about your services, what's the best place to get a hold of you and way to contact you?
So the easiest is just to go to the website, the CEOs. So it's the CEOs right hand, RIGHTHAND.com. And everything's there, and contact us is there, etc. in my bio. And you can contact me anytime.
Great. And I'll make sure that the link is below or in the show notes, wherever it ends up being, so they can get through and get to that. William, this is a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the program.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You've been listening to Scaling Up Services with business coach Bruce Eckfeldt. To find a full list of podcast episodes, download the tools and worksheets, and access other great content, visit the website at scalingupservices.com. And don't forget to sign up for the free newsletter at scalingupservices.com/newsletter.